Good afternoon, everyone. This is Carrie McCann-Botel, President of the Iowa Council of Foundations. We are still having a few folks dial in. I wanted to do just a quick roll call to see who has dialed in. I see quite a few folks logged in, but don't have everyone dialed in just yet. So I'm going to unmute the lines if you want to say hello to everyone and then mute your line. Then we'll get started with our presentation. So I'm
The conference has been muted. The conference has been unmuted.
Hey, if you don't have your phone on,
yeah. All right, buddy, can you get your shoes on for Mama?
The conference has been muted.
Okay, I was getting lots of feedback, so if everyone could please put their phone on mute. And then I will open it up again just to make sure we have everyone dialed in.
The conference has been unmuted. The conference has been muted.
Okay, I'm still getting a lot of feedback. Give me just one moment, and I'm going to try and unmute our presenters directly. Just one moment, please.
Hey, Carrie, it's Deanne.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
Yep. Okay, Deanne. Everyone should be able to hear you now. We're going to keep everyone else in listen-only mode. Was getting lots of other noise, so I'll keep it that way. But everyone should be able to hear you now. So welcome, everyone. We are excited to welcome you to the webinar in preparation for our grade level reading lobby day on February 28th. Deanne Cook, the Executive Director of the United Ways of Iowa, will be leading us through the presentation today and talking with everyone about our strategies for the day and also some things that we can be working on as we prepare. So I will go ahead and turn it over to you, Deanne.
Thank you, Carrie. Thanks to everybody for joining us today. We're just going to walk through some logistics of the day and what we can do to prepare ahead of time and be ready to talk on our issues. So if you've been following things at the State House, you know there's a lot of activity happening, and things are a little bit in flux. So what we talk about today will be as we know it today, and if and when any of these things change or move forward, we'll keep you posted. So with that, we'll start off. The grade level reading lobby day is February 28th. All the legislators will get an invitation in their mailbox at the Capitol either today or tomorrow, so they will be aware of it. Our goals for the day are really to talk with legislators in small groups, one-on-one, personally connect with them, and we're really trying to be very focused in what we present this year because their brains have been working on so many issues. I think that the best goal we can have is to be very focused and try to just implant one or two messages on them that day. But the face-to-face, in-person, personal connection is so important. So really what we're trying to share with them is the importance of grade level reading programs for Iowa's kids. They're getting it. They've heard it over and over. Summer learning has been a big topic, and we're starting to see the shift this year in them understanding that third grade is probably too late. And paying attention earlier, intervening earlier, investing earlier, as early as pre-K is critical to reading success. So illustrating that to them is a key point with stories, with successes from your community. Share why your organization got involved and why you drank that Kool-Aid and realized that earlier intervention is best. So really that's the one key point if we can just keep impressing upon them. Then the schedule for the day is it's a lunch this year. So as I mentioned, probably things will be changing between now and February 28th. There'll probably be some movement on some of these issues. So if we can gather, if you get there a few minutes early, the lunch buffet doesn't really open until 11:30. But if we can gather between 11 and 11:30, we can do some updating and sort of some pre-work and some pre-conversation about where we stand on that day and kind of refresh on some of our lobbying tips. So gather for that quick update and overview, and then the lunch will be served. So room 116 is a large committee room that's at the base of the grand staircase on the first floor of the Capitol. The buffet lunch will be actually set up outside the room, and then we'll be able to bring the legislators into the room and talk with them. There are some large tables there. There's lots of chairs in there. So I will be trying to nab the legislators as they come through for their lunch and pull them into the room and match them up with those of you who are from their geography. And if that isn't happening, anybody can talk to anybody. It's great if we can match people up with their legislator from their district, but if not, it's better that they hear the message than not hear it at all. So I will hopefully have a couple of my lobbyists with me to do that matching and pulling them in the room. Hey, I see you've got your plate of food. Come on in and let's talk about grade level reading. So that's when we will need all of you to be advocates and be ready to talk with them over their lunch. And then after lunch wraps up, if there are some committee meetings happening, the House Education Committee typically meets in the afternoon at 2. The Senate Education Committee typically meets at 3. If they happen to be meeting that day, we can certainly go to those. If there are other leaders that we didn't get to see or folks that didn't come down for lunch, we can go up into the rotunda and call them out if you didn't see everybody from your delegation. So the afternoon is sort of flexible to see what's happening up there. So advocacy tips. Now we've figured out how to corral them. What are we going to do with them? So remember that they want to meet with you. And again, focus is really important. They don't have very long to talk. And again, their brains are full of all sorts of issues right now. So it's important to be succinct and make your point pretty quickly. If you don't know the answer, if they're asking you for something that you didn't bring the data or you don't have the research for, that's okay. Just let them know you'll follow up with them, or typically they ask for you to email them some more information. So be ready to do that. If it's something that you're not sure of the answer to, or it's more of a statewide kind of question, you can have Terry or Becky or I do the follow-up. That's fine. Our lobbyists always say, don't guess. If you don't know the answer, say, that's a really good question. I need to look into that and get back to you. The key thing right now, between now and February 28th, that you can be doing is letting your legislators know that you'll be there. So they'll get that postcard that Carrie created in their mailbox probably by the end of this week. So next week would be a great time for you to reach out to them via email and say, or if you know them personally or you call them or whatever, and say, hey, I'll be up at the Capitol on the 28th, would love to see you at lunch. And that really makes a difference to them. If they know some of their constituents will be there, they do come downstairs and say, hey, I'd like to see so-and-so, and it's the person who invited them. So the best thing you can do between now and then is let them personally know you'll be there and you'd like to see them. And then once the day is over, whoever you've talked to, follow up with a thank you. If you want to do a written thank you, if you want to do an email thank you, if they've asked you for some other information or you've shared some information with them you'd like to impress upon them again, the thank you is also an opportunity to get that back in front of them. So kind of keep a mental list of who you need to thank as the follow-up when you get back home. So moving on to what we have foreseen as our key legislative items. Again, make aware of the importance of early intervention. And what's been happening now is that both education committees, the House Committee and the Senate Committee, have heard from the Department of Ed on the summer reading pilot from the summer of 2016. And as you know, that indicated that there was a bit of an attendance problem. There was an issue with getting enough certified teachers to provide the instruction, and really the best outcome was that kids maintained. They did not accelerate their learning. So those were, in the way they designed the pilot, maintaining is a lot better than dropping. But what I think that the legislators really could hear right now that they haven't heard, that would be new information to them, is what you're doing in the summer in your community. Make them proud as your legislator to say, hey, we've created a program, or we have a program in your district that engages kids, that kids participate in, that maintains or accelerates their learning. There are lots of models out there, and they've only really heard about one that wasn't on its face all that successful. So we need to continue to impress upon them that summer is a great time for learning, and there are ways to design the program that will engage kids. So that's really, I think, the key thing that we can get across to them, because what we don't want to happen is them to just write off summer learning because on the face of it, the pilot was not that successful. They need to be aware there's other ways to deliver and do it that may work a whole lot better, and we need to hear about those and investigate those in the Capitol. So really, a lot of you have good stories to tell about how you do that in the summer or in out of school time, even if it's during the school year. Help them understand that there are options. So I would say that's the big one. Secondarily, and if this is really of something of importance in your community or that you're working on, there's also a bill I'll talk about in a little bit about expanding preschool for low-income kids, and also expanding the first 5 to encompass the entire state. It's in several counties, but it's not fully statewide yet. So those would be kind of 2 secondary points. If there's something you're comfortable with and you're working on a lot, go with where your heart is and where your knowledge is when you're talking to them. So on the reading proficiency, I kind of gave you the state of the union where they're at right now, which is that they haven't budgeted any money for summer intensive learning. They've heard the report from the pilot, which was not stellar, and they still have this retention hanging out there for next year. So they're sort of at a crossroads right now in that they have retention hanging out there, but they haven't figured out how to provide the intervention that avoids the consequence for the kids. So I just, actually Senator Amy Sinclair, who leads the Senate Education Committee, is the one who just signed off on us sending out our invites. And so I had a quick chance to talk to her, and she said that she has just last night sent some communication to the governor's office saying she needs some direction on summer learning and retention, because she really doesn't know where to go with it now, because there's no money. What they tried wasn't that successful, but they've got this big retention thing hanging out there that they're not going to be addressing. So hopefully by February 28th, we'll know a little bit more about where they're headed. But I think in the meantime, no matter what ends up coming up, and I really believe retention is going to either go away or have to get kicked down the road even further, I think building up the legislators' knowledge of lots of models of learning, summer's important, we do great stuff that engages kids, is the best thing that they can be hearing right now. Make that legislator proud to share what's going on in their community. So I think we all know that the information on the next slide is not anything that is new to us. 25% of third graders in Iowa are not reading at grade level. The importance of that shift from learning to read to reading to learn, and the long-term consequences of not reaching that milestone. So I really feel like most legislators are there on this slide. They get it. They are understanding it, particularly those who are in the education committees. But it never hurts to remind them, or if you have a new legislator that hasn't been as involved with the summer reading issue because of their assignments in the legislature or somewhere besides education, you can always impress upon them these important facts. So again, on those kind of second tier issues that may be of particular interest to your work or your community, you can certainly talk about them. Preschool, there is a preschool bill filed right now by Kevin Kester of Ankeny. It still has some legs, and it probably will, we hope it will still be in play on February 28th. So what the bill does is kind of a two-pronged approach. It provides more funding weighting for low-income kids. And the second thing it does is increase flexibility for how preschool dollars can be spent, because right now they're very siloed, and it makes it difficult to offer more than just the 2 or 3 hour a day experience. So Kester's bill tries to address both of those by opening up flexibility and funding to local control and gives them more ways to spend those dollars to deliver longer programming, and secondly, addressing giving more money per kid to those who are below a certain threshold. It's gotten a little bit hung up on, there's some concerns about, well, what is the threshold and how are we going to verify families fall under that threshold? And there's a little bit of pushback on flexibility of funding because the Department of Ed set up some very strict rules with preschool funding, and they're a little leery about kind of opening up the flow between silos of money. So a strong coalition of lobbyists have been working on this and trying to keep it alive and trying to address those issues as they pop up. So if House File 25 is still going by February 28th, it would be great to talk to legislators about the importance of preschool and getting those 4-year-olds in who may not otherwise have access to it because their families just can't make the schedules work. And First 5 is, I know, an issue that some of you work on, and it's not in every county in Iowa, but I think the legislators are fairly sold on the concept of it. It's just expanding to reach all counties. This probably won't be something that's just being discussed a lot in February. It's more part of the appropriations process, which is when they divvy up all the money in the budget, and that will come in later March and April is when they do the appropriations. So if it's important to you, you may want to mention it, but I really think our time is best spent on the reading issue and then secondarily on that preschool issue. So that's sort of a rundown. Reading, preschool, First 5 in that order. Let your legislators know that you will be there on the 28th and where to find you. And we will keep you posted, try to get there a little bit before 11:30 on the 28th so we can update you on where we stand because the preschool issue is really in motion right now, and we'll know more about reading by then. So I imagine we will have some updating to do with you before we start meeting with legislators that day. So that is everything I have, and I am happy to have discussion or questions.
Great, thanks, Deanne. I'm going to try opening up the lines again, and if everyone could just mute their phone if they don't have a question to ask, that would be great. So we don't have that feedback. So I'll give this another shot here. I'm unmuting everyone now.
The conference has been unmuted.
Okay, great. That's a little quieter. Just make sure your phone is on mute, and then if you have a question, please feel free to chime in now, and I'd also be willing to read questions in the chat box. I did see a question come in about the slides being emailed out. Yes, we can get those to you, and we can also get a recording of the webinar to everyone to share with other colleagues who may be joining us for the Lobby Day. So any other questions at this time?
Carrie, this is Becky, and I wanted to just jump in with a couple of things.
Sure.
We are putting together a really beautiful infographic that ICOF has been working on that just gives some of the overall an overall snapshot of the grade level reading work in Iowa, and we're going to have some data points from the communities that submitted self-assessments to the campaign this year on that. So you'll be getting a copy of that in advance, and we'll have copies for the legislators that day. And then I'm also going to be sending out an example of a kind of a one-pager that Dubuque put together last year for their Day on the Hill visit, and they've updated it this year, and just some suggestions for the kind of data points that you might want to bring to be able to share with your legislators. So look for that in the next day or so from me.
Thanks,
There was a
Becky.
question about where we're meeting, and Jean, we're going to be meeting in room 116 at the Capitol, and we should be able to meet as early as 11 o'clock, and Deanne is going to give us a little update as to where the various bills are in process at this point in time, or as of the 28th, I should say.
Any other questions while we're connected this afternoon?
Deanne, did we mention that we would like folks to reach out to their legislators in advance of this to let them know they're going to be there?
Yes. So maybe wait till next week, first of all, because all of their emails are just jammed with hundreds of emails right now this week. So for a couple of reasons, probably wait till next week because their emails are jammed and because they won't be getting their invite postcards until potentially even tomorrow. So just next week, again, as I said, reach out, let them know you'll be there, what time. I'd love to see you for lunch. It does make a huge difference if you reach out to them in advance.
And
what I'll do when Carrie sends out the slides, I'm going to also include the list of the House Education Committee and the Senate Education Committee. So if you have legislators on those or you know folks on those just from wherever, I would say those are our key targets that we'd like to get them to see us that day.
Okay, well, if we don't have any other questions this afternoon, we will get you those items that we promised to share out and ask you to continue to invite your colleagues and community partners to join us on the 28th. We will share our State of Iowa one-pager that we're developing and that specific community or local level tool that Becky mentioned, and hope that you can come prepared with that representation of your local information. And if you have any questions as we continue to prepare for the day, please feel free to reach out to myself or Becky or Deanne, and we'd be happy to answer any questions. So thanks for joining us this afternoon, and hope everyone has a great afternoon. Take care.
Thanks, Carrie.
Thank you.